Welcome, Prabhus. We accept our humble obeisances. Gauda Chandra Prabhu from LA, Los Angeles, is giving class this morning. On his own, he figured out how to get on to start meeting. So he's sharing his screen this morning. So if anyone would like to take advantage of that, be sure to call up your screen sharing if it's possible. Looks like we have 7 devotees right now who are screen sharing, who can see the screen.
Cool. I can go in.
So, Gauda Chandra Prabhu, I press the record button, and we have, of course, Hari Prabhu, Kandita Prabhu, Rishabh Dev, Manjari, Hibla Rasa, Krishna Rasa. So we have devotees on ready to hear you. So why don't hear and see you this morning? So why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah, this is great. This is a lot better than the phone, that's for sure. Jai.
Jai.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Channa Vallabha Vivaradari Gopi Channa Vallabha Vivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Randana Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Janna Vallabha Vivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Kunja Bihari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Randana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jai Vishnu Pad Padmamsa Parvajikacharya Skatar Sakasvishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnu Pad Padmamsa Parvajikacharya Skatar Sakasvishimad Guru Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai
Jai
Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki Jai
Jai
Islam BDT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai
Jai
Namsikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sadguru
Jai
Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai
Jai
Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai
Jai
Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai
Jai
Navadvipa Dhama Ki Jai
Jai
Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai
Jai
Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol
Hari Bol
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai
Jai
Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai
Jai
Vinamaya Gangamaya Ki Jai
Jai
Book Distribution Ki Jai
Jai
Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai
Jai
Vishalam Distribution Ki Jai
Jai
Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bol
Hari Bol
All glories to some of devotees Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
All glories to some of devotees
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
All glories to some of devotees Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Guru Ganga
Jai
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the first canto, chapter 3, text number 5. So this is the class will be entitled "To See God is Very Mysterious." So you can see the pictures there. You know who's God. So Etan Nanavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yashyam Samsena Srijante Deva Kiryan Naradaya Etananavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yasyam Samsena Srijante Devatiryan Naradayaha Etananavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yasyam Samsena Srijante Devatiryan Naradayaha Etananavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yasyam Samsena Srijante Devatiryan Naradayaha
Etananavataranam Nidhanam Bija Avyayam Yasyam Shamshena Srijante Devatiryan Naradayaha
Etananavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yasyam Shamsena Srijante Devatiryan Naradayaha
Etananavataranam
Etannanavataranam
Nidhanam bijam avyayam
Nidhanam bijam avyayam
Yasyam shamsena srijante
Yasyam shamsena srijante
Devaterya naradaya
Devatyam naradeyaha
Etananavataranam
Etan nanavataranam
Nidhanam bijam avyayam
Nidhanam bijam avyayam
Yasyam shamshena srijante
Yasyam shamsena srijante
Devatirya naradayaha
Devaterya naradayaha.
Synonyms: etat,
Etat,
this form,
this form.
nana,
Nana,
multifarious,
multifarious.
avataranam,
Avataranam,
of the incarnations,
of the incarnations.
nidhanam,
Nidhanam,
source,
source.
bijam,
Bijam,
seed,
seed.
avyayam,
Avyayam,
indestructible,
indestructible.
yasya,
Yasya,
whose,
whose.
amsa,
Amsa,
plenary portion,
plenary portion.
amsena,
Amshena,
part of the plenary portion,
part of the plenary portion.
srijante,
Srijante,
create,
create.
deva,
Deva,
demigods,
demigods.
tiryak,
Tiryak,
animals,
animals.
narda adaya,
Nara adaya,
human beings and others.
human beings and others.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. This form, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within a universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created. Please repeat. This form,
This
form,
the second manifestation of the Purusha,
the second manifestation of the Purusha,
is the source and indestructible seed
is the source and indestructible seed
of multifarious incarnations within the universe.
of multifarious incarnations within the universe.
From the particles and portions of this form,
From the particles and portions of this form,
different living entities
different living entities,
like demigods,
demigods,
men, and others are created.
men, and others are created.
Okay, so Prabhu, just give me a second to mute everybody. For those of you on Skype, you're missing a PowerPoint presentation, but that's okay. So just one second. Okay, now I've unmuted you. I'm going to mute myself. Please continue.
Okay, purport. Sorry, it's kind of small to read on this presentation here, but I'll try to do the best. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Purusha after creating innumerable universes in the Mahatattva, entered in each of them as the second Purusha, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. When he saw that within the universe there was only darkness and space without a resting place, he filled half of the universe with water from his own perspiration and laid himself down on the same water. This water is called Garbhodaka. Then from his navel the stem of the lotus flower sprouted, and on the flower petals the birth of Brahma, or the master engineer of the universal plan, took place. Brahma became the engineer of the universe, and the Lord himself took charge of the maintenance of the universe as Vishnu. Brahma was generated from Raja Guna of Prakriti, or the mode of passion in nature, and Vishnu became the Lord of the mode of goodness. Vishnu, being transcendental to all the modes, is always aloof from materialistic affection. This has already been explained. From Brahma there is Rudra, Shiva, who is in charge of the mode of ignorance or darkness. He destroys the whole creation by the will of the Lord. Therefore all three, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are incarnations of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. From Brahma, the other demigods like Daksha, Marichi, Manu, and many others become incarnated to generate living entities within the universe. This Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is glorified in the Vedas in the form of Garbha Stuti, which begin with the description of the Lord as having thousands of heads, etc. The Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the Lord of the universe, and although he appears to be lying within the universe, he is always transcendental. This also has already been explained. The Vishnu, who is the plenary portion of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, is the supersoul of the universal life, and he is known as the maintainer of the universe, or Chirodakshaya Vishnu. So the three features of the original Purusha are thus understood, and all the incarnations within the universe are emanations from this Chirodakshaya Vishnu. In different millennia there are different incarnations, and they are innumerable, although some of them are very prominent, such as Matsya, Kurma, Vraha, Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, and many others. These incarnations are called Lila incarnations. Then there are qualitative incarnations, such as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or Rudra, who take charge of the different modes of material nature. Lord Vishnu is different from the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is the marginal position between the personality of Godhead and the living entities, or jivas. Brahma is always a jiva tattva, the highest pious living being, or the greatest devotee of the Lord, is empowered with the potency of the Lord for creation, and he is called Brahma. His power is like the power of the sun, reflected in valuable stones and jewels. When there is no such living being to take charge of the post of Brahma, the Lord himself becomes a Brahma and takes charge of the post. Lord Shiva is non-different from the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is in the marginal position between the personality of Godhead and the living entities, or jivas. Brahma is always a jiva tattva, the highest pious living being, or the greatest devotee of the Lord, is empowered with the potency of the Lord for creation, and he is called Brahma. His power is like the power of the sun, reflected in valuable stones and jewels. When there is no such living being to take charge of the post of Brahma, the Lord himself becomes a Brahma and takes charge of the post. Did I read that already? I guess I did. Sorry. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary being. He is the plenary portion of the Lord. But because Lord Shiva is in direct touch with material nature, he is not exactly in the same transcendental position as Lord Vishnu. The difference is like that between milk and curd. Curd is nothing but milk, and yet it cannot be used in place of milk. The next incarnation, or incarnations, are the Manus. Within 1 day's duration of the life of Brahma, which is calculated by our solar year as 4,300,000 times 1,000 years, there are 14 Manus. Therefore, there are 420 Manus in 1 month of Brahma, and 5,040 Manus in 1 year of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years of his age, and therefore there are 5,040 times 100, or 504,000 Manus in the duration of Brahma's life. There are innumerable universes with one Brahma in each of them, and all of them are created and annihilated during the breathing time of the Purusha. Therefore, one can simply imagine how many millions of Manus there are during one breath of the Purusha. The Manus who are prominent within this universe are as follows: Yajna as Swayambhuva Manu, Vibhu as Swarochisa Manu, Satyasena as Uttama Manu, Hari as Tamasa Manu, Vaikuntha as Raivata Manu, Ajita as Chaksusa Manu, Vamana as Vaivasvata Manu. The present age is under this Vaivasvata Manu. Sarvabhauma as Savarni Manu, Rishabha as Dakshas-Savarni Manu, Vishvakshena as Brahma Savarni Manu, Dharmasetu as Dharma Savarni Manu, Sudama as Rudra Savarni Manu, Yogeshvara as Deva Savarni Manu, and Brihabhanu as Indra Savarni Manu. These are the names of one set of 14 Manus covering 4,300,000,000 solar years as described above. Then there are the Yuga avatars, or the incarnations of the millennia. The Yugas are known as Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, and Kali Yuga. The incarnations of each Yuga are of different color. The colors are white, red, black, and yellow. In the Dwarpa Yuga, Lord Krishna in black color appeared, and in the Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya in yellow color appeared. So all the incarnations of the Lord are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. There is no scope for an impostor to become an incarnation, for an incarnation must be mentioned in the Shastras. An incarnation does not declare himself to be an incarnation of the Lord. But great sages agree by the symptoms mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The features of the incarnation and the particular type of mission which he has to execute are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Apart from the direct incarnations, there are innumerable empowered incarnations. They are also mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Such incarnations are directly as well as indirectly empowered. When they are directly empowered, they are called incarnations. But when they are indirectly empowered, they are called vibhutis. Directly empowered incarnations are the Kumaras, Narada, Prithu, Sesha, Ananta, etc. As far as vibhutis are concerned, they are very explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita in the Vibhuti Yoga chapter. And for all these different types of incarnations, the fountainhead is the Garbhodaksayi Vishnu. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshus Unmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Tribhishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the verse again is Etan Nanavataranam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam Yasyam Samsena Sujante Devatiryan Naradayaha. This form, the seed manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created. So just see, this is the form that Krishna takes. Actually, this, it's very interesting to see. We want to see God. Some people say, "Oh, let me show me God. How can I see God?" It's a very mysterious thing. And even if you read the scriptures, there's descriptions of gods. So many gods. Look at this, like expansion. Some scriptures say that, Narayan is God, Vishnu is God. So many different aspects of God. Even some places says Lord Shiva is Bhagavan. Things like this. It could be very confusing. So it's very mysterious to actually understand who God really is. So we are very fortunate to have the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures, which gives us this knowledge to understand who we are, who God is, and everything. So here's some of the notes that I took. I just kind of using a Keynote in a Mac, trying it out and see how I could just slap together some notes. I was just thinking about different things here, and I slapped these together. And then I copied and pasted from the Pocket Vedas, which you can get as an app for the Mac. And then I just slapped it into here. So I'm just checking this out. First time using this, so we'll see how it works. And then you can see all the different notes here. I won't be able to cover everything because I grabbed a lot more stuff than what we could talk about in this short span of time. But we just, in the third chapter now, and this is a very important chapter. It has some very amazing conclusions here. It's very deep. It has a very important purpose. Just like in the beginning, we're understanding who the absolute truth is in three features as described. The Paramatma Bhagavan, the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And then the second chapter, which we finished, it described a wonderful progression of one's purity, how to develop one's Krishna prema. So now in this chapter we're on, it's the third chapter, it gives us this deep, important purpose, and it talks about the three Vishnus. So this is up to the fifth verse, which we're on now. It concludes that, talks about Vishnu. So it's describing how bhakti, it should only be done towards Vishnu, not the demigods, in order to get the actual result. This is what we're actually understanding. So Sutta Goswami, he's equating Bhagavan with Vishnu. And then there's Vasudeva, and there's a verse I gave last time I gave class on Skype, was his equating Bhagavan with Vasudeva. Remember that verse, Vasudeva Pada Veda, Vasudeva Pada Mukha, Vasudeva Pada Yoga, Kriya, Jnana, Tapa, Dharma, and he is the Vasudeva Paragati. So the Absolute is Bhagavan. It has all these different aspects. So we're kind of wondering, who is the possessor of all these opulences? Who is this real Bhagavan? So here, we just finished discussing the three Purushas, our Vishnu, and the first verse, it actually gave us a hint of who Bhagavan actually is in the first chapter, in the first verse of this chapter. And that was when Sutta Goswami said, in the beginning of creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form. So he first expanded himself in the universal form. So here's that verse. Jagre Parusham Rupam. So Bhagavan Mahad Adibi. So this is Krishna, he expanded himself in this way. So this Bhagavan, he accepted the form of the Purusha, or avatars for creating the material world. But it doesn't really say who Bhagavan actually is. Of course, we know we have Prabhupada's purports, and we're so fortunate to have the Parampara system that Prabhupada explains within the purports all throughout the books, who actually Bhagavan is. But, just say you're reading the verses and you're a Sanskrit scholar and you can interpret things in so many different ways. It's talking about Bhagavan in so many ways here. So we can interpret it in many different ways. So here, in this verse we're on today, it described how Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the source of all incarnations. Actually, Prabhupada said in the purport that Kshirodakshaya Vishnu was the source of all the incarnations in the purport we just finished reading. And we remember from the first canto, the first beginning before this is actually Sutta Goswami was asked to explain about the Lord and his personality. Who this, how he actually learned about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. They want to explain these teachings because by just learning about how Krishna expands himself into the material world is in different incarnations, then one is uplifted both by speaking and by hearing. And this is the purport that's on this particular thing where Prabhupada gives that one should actually have particular conditions for hearing the transcendental messages. And the first one is that the audience must be very sincere and eager to hear. And that the speaker must be in the line of disciplic succession from the recognized acharya. So this is very important that we have this as described by Devamrita Swami, the technology of the Parampara system. It's a very powerful technology. Just like that technology, we accept as devotees, as transcendentalists. But in the material world, the technology that they have for their authority, it's always changing. It's, completely speculative and you don't know for sure. But here, if we have faith in the scriptures and we actually follow this path, this system of the Parampara system, then we can actually understand Krishna's superhuman activities, his incarnations, his birth, appearances, disappearances, all that stuff is described in this purport. So these discourses will help us on the path of spiritualization. So let's see if we have these in order here. So there's another verse that's in this particular chapter. It's very nice. It gives us another hint who Bhagavan is. This is the 23rd verse. And that's the one where it says, Bhagavan Arhat Param. So that's when Krishna and Balaram appeared. It doesn't say that this is the only verse. None of the other verses actually said Bhagavan. But this particular verse is like the first verse we mentioned. And this verse, 23rd verse, it describes that this is it. Rama, Krishna, Iti, Bhuvo, Bhagavan, Arhat Param. So they appeared. Give us another hint who Bhagavan is. So now we come to a really nice verse here. This is actually an amazing verse in this chapter. It's also explaining how this chapter is so important. It's just amazing. This is the 28th verse. And this is considered to be a key sloka. This is more than a sloka, it's a sutra. And there's different kinds of sutras. I forget how many there are, but this is like one of the most powerful sutras. It's called the Paribhashya Sutra. I don't know if I spelled that right. But Paribhashya Sutra. And it's considered to be like a Maharati, a great warrior who can just, defeat millions and millions, unlimited amounts of soldiers and enemies, warriors. So this is that one sutra. This is a very powerful sutra. Jiva Goswami uses this to defeat. Jiva Goswami was one of the most erudite scholars of his time. In fact, Prabhupada told one devotee that I don't think there ever was a great scholar as Jiva Goswami, nor will there ever be such a great scholar as him. And he is amazing. He just knows the Bhagavatam like a walnut in his hand. He could just, everything. He sees the whole picture, all the book, transcendental literature. So this is one of the verses that Jiva Goswami uses to prove who is Bhagavan. And it's a key sloka for understanding the entire import of this entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So like usually there's one Paribhasa Sutra in a big book, and it's like a key sloka for understanding the entire, book. Because there's so many things that we're seeing. We saw so many times it's talking about different incarnations of Krishna, different aspects of Krishna, creator. There's so many different things, and we could get confused. But if we understand this one Paribhasa Sutra, which has the entire import of the Shastra in its condensed form, then we'll understand the whole Bhagavatam. We won't be confused. We won't get some kind of, speculative imagination or think these are just entertaining stories or whatever, or we can actually figure out who they are. So Jiva Goswami, even though that's such a powerful verse, he finds other verses from the Bhagavatam to support that. One great king in his endeavor. These are like the great, generals and the foot soldiers. These come as other supportive verses that we know Lord Brahma, one of the created beings here we described, the expansions of Krishna. Sometimes people say Lord Brahma is the personality of God. He creates everything. But we know Lord Brahma couldn't understand how Krishna is the supreme. He kills these demons, but I need to see more. How is this boy? He's like playing in the, in the forest and herding cows, and he's barefoot. He's not even wearing shoes, and he's having food. He's eating with his left hand. You call this, this is God, Krishna. You see, and he's just fighting and playing with his friends. I don't know if this is Krishna. Let me check. So what he does is he steals all the cowherd boys, and all the cows and everything, just a minute of his time, but for the earthly time it was a year. And he comes back, and what does he see? As we show here in this one nice picture that I have here. This is the one on the right. Krishna comes and sees all the cowherd boys. All the cows are just exactly the way they were when I took them. And he's kind of bewildered. What's going on here? Then Krishna reveals himself like this. Each of those boys of cows, he manifests a Vishnu form. That is Krishna. So he says, my power compared to this is so insignificant. Krishna is definitely the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is where he proves in this verse that verse that supports the Paribhasha Sutra. This is the Narayanas Tvam Nahi Sarva Dehinam Atmasha Ari Sakhila Loka Saksi Narayanongam Nara Puja Javayanti Tachchapi Satyam Tavavaiva Maya. Are you not the original Narayan, O Supreme Controller? Since you are the soul of every embodied being and the eternal witness of all created realms, indeed, Lord Narayan is your expansion. And he is called Narayan because he is the generating source of the primeval water of the universe. He is real, not a product of your illusory Maya. So that was the wonderful prayers of Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, 14th chapter. And this is a very important verse that it shows, that proves Krishna, he is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's another verse in this particular, this is actually another verse where in the 10th canto. And this is, did I put the chapter? Can't remember. Anyway, this is when Arjuna was totally amazed. This is the story about when the Brahmanas' children were being taken away from him, one after another, in Dwarka, can you imagine, in Krishna's city. No one was able to protect him, so the Brahmana was was upset. And Prabhupada says in the purport to this particular verse that he said, just see, even though I'm a mere... Oh, no, this is something different, I'm sorry. But there's this Brahmin, he was actually upset, and he was saying, isn't there this king, he was blaming the king, because the kings are responsible for the welfare of all the citizens. Compare that today, this day and age. So he was criticizing the king for being a sense enjoyer, and not following principles properly, that why else would my children die in this city, because somehow there's some discrepancy in his service. So, he kept going complaining to the king, and then one time Arjuna heard him, and Arjuna said, what? Isn't there any Kshatriyas to protect, you? And he said, well, let me protect your children, and I will protect them, with my Gandiva bowl. And he's like saying, what? Even Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and, all the, different great personalities, they weren't able to save him, and you think you can do it? So he said, how can we take you seriously? So that's a pretty heavy insult for a Kshatriya. How can we take you seriously? So Arjuna was like, well, I'm not Sankarshan, I'm not Pradyumna, I'm not Aniruddha, I'm not Krishna's son, anybody. I am Arjuna. I have my Gandiva bow, and I will protect you and, relieve all your distress for you and your wife. So he was like saying, my prowess, I was able to satisfy even Lord Shiva. So, and if I can't do this, then I will actually enter fire. So, the Brahmin was, convinced of Arjuna's prowess. So he went home satisfied. So then his wife was about to have another child, and he was very, very scared. He came and got Arjuna. So Arjuna came and he goes, I will protect you. And it was amazing. Arjuna made these protective arrows. He was able to have missiles attached to his arrows, and he created like a net completely around, up and down, below, sideways from this Brahmin's house to protect it. And still, after the child was born, he immediately disappeared in the sky. And, the Brahmin was like completely disturbed, and he said, he started blaspheming Arjuna. How can I was such a fool to take faith in somebody who was so proud and audacious to think that he can actually protect me when someone like, these great Aniruddha and Sankarshan couldn't even protect my child. I put my trust in this eunuch. He started to criticize Arjuna. Very heavy. So Arjuna said, okay. So he took this mystic form, actually, another kind of a mystic incarnation of himself, and he went to all these different, the lower planets, upper planets, all over to try to find these children with weapons in hand. But he didn't have any luck, so he vowed that I will do this, otherwise I'll enter fire. So he was going to do it. And Krishna said, wait, stop. I will take you to where these children are. So they went and they started going, flying, out of the planet, out of the universe, through the different layers. And eventually they went to Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu, who we see the picture in the beginning, there's just pores of universes, universes just pouring out of the pores of his skin, his mouth, and his breathing. It's just amazing. This great, powerful personality, Mahavishnu. And they came and they offered obeisances. Krishna was, playing the role of in his Nara Leela as a human being. So he offered obeisances to Mahavishnu, and so did Arjuna. And they began to, offer prayers. And Mahavishnu said, yes, I have been waiting so long to see you. I've been hankering to see you, so long that I made this arrangement so that I may get your darshan, And then he began to instruct Arjuna and Krishna, and they told him, do different things, and then they agreed, and then they said, Om, and they agreed, and they left, and Arjuna was just amazed. And here's this verse, that we come to hear that having seen the domain of Lord Vishnu, Arjuna was totally amazed, and he concluded that whatever extraordinary power a person exhibits can only be manifested of Sri Krishna's mercy. And then there's a nice purport here about Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti who describes Arjuna's amazement. He thought, just see, even though I'm a mere mortal, by Krishna's mercy I've seen the Supreme Godhead, the root cause of everything. And then after a moment he thought, again, but why did Lord Vishnu say that he took away the Brahman's children out of a desire to see Krishna? Why would the Supreme Personality of Godhead hanker to see his own expansion? This might be the effect of some particular temporary circumstance, but since he said didrikshuna instead of didrikshata, where the specific suffix suna carries the sense of a permanent characteristic, not a temporary one, it has to be concluded that he has always been wanting to see Krishna and myself. Even granted that this is so, why couldn't he simply see Krishna at Dwarka? After all, Lord Mahavishnu is the all-pervading creator of the universe, which he holds like an amalaka fruit in his hand. Is it that he could not see Krishna in Dwarka because Krishna does not allow anyone to see him without his special sanction? And Arjuna goes on, and why also would Lord Mahavishnu, the compassionate master of all Brahmanas, have repeatedly tormented and have elevated Brahmana year after year? He must have acted in this unusual way only because he could not give up his extreme eagerness to see Krishna. All right, he may have acted improperly for that reason, but why couldn't he have sent a servant to kidnap the Brahmana's sons? Why did he himself have to come to Dwarka? Was stealing them out of Lord Krishna's capital so difficult that no one but Vishnu himself could hope to accomplish it? I can understand that he intended to cause so much distress to a Brahmin of Lord Krishna's city that Krishna would be unable to tolerate it. Then he would grant Lord Vishnu his audience. Lord Vishnu inspired the distressed Brahmana to pour out his complaints to Krishna in person. Thus it is clear that Sri Krishna's status of Godhead is superior to Lord Mahavishnu's. So this is Arjuna was thinking in this way. So he was totally amazed, and then he asked Krishna whether this was actually the fact. And Krishna replied, and it's related in the Hamsi Vamsa, this verse, Ma darshanartam te pala. It was to see me that he, the Supreme Soul, stole the children. He believed only on the Brahmana's behalf will Krishna come to see me, not otherwise. So then further describes how, Srila Vaishnava Chakra Thakur says that, that if I didn't go there, however, for the Brahmana's sake, that he actually went there to save Arjuna's life. So this is nice. So this is another one that actually, shows the supremacy of Lord Krishna and his glories, and how he is the Samabonam. He is actually Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one else. So we can see these wonderful stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we understand from the first 9 cantos. They're actually, just describing, Krishna's glories. And then we get to see Krishna himself, the Samabonam, in the 10th canto. This is all described. And there's so many verses that describes how Krishna, this is a verse that, I think it's right in this chapter actually. O Brahmanas, incarnation Lord, are innumerable, like the, rivulets flowing from exhaustible source of water. And then in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the Supreme Personality of God has said, yes, I'll tell you splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, because it is limitless. So this is the incomprehensibility of Krishna. It's so amazing. There's another nice verse, Yad Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam Srimad Vijat. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of his splendor. So Prabhupada says in the purport that Krishna's office would be spiritual, material, everything is, representative of Krishna. And this is the 10th chapter where it talks about in the purport of this verse today, the Vibhuti forms, how Krishna comes in all his different in Vibhuti forms, the light of the sun, different things like that. So there's some very nice purports by Srila Prabhupada. He talks about the diseased of the modern civilization is to disbelieve everything in the revealed scriptures, and how these non-believers, they cannot progress. They can't understand the spiritual potency. And just by a material example it gives of a banyan tree, gives hundreds of seeds. And in each seed, the potency to produce unlimited, millions of more fruits. So these are the laws of nature right before us. We can't even understand Krishna. So this is an example, an insignificant example of the potency of Godhead. And there's so many other phenomena that the scientists can't explain. So Prabhupada goes on and talks more about the revealed scriptures and how people become, they can't understand. They become paradoxal. So anyway, this is like nectar, like Sutta Goswami was saying. They wanted to hear, the sages wanted to hear from Sutta Goswami, and this is like fragrant nectar flow, from the lotus mouth of Sukadeva Goswami. You see, it's because these wonderful glorifications of the Supreme Personality destroys all fear of material existence. It's like a traveler who constantly drinks this nectar through his ear holes will forget the fatigue brought about by wandering along the paths of worldly life. So this is the narrations of Sukadeva Goswami is for two things. It's freedom from the suffering from spiritual infirmity, and it is also a tonic to cure the disease of illusion. So therefore, for surrendered Vaishnavas, it's very delicious, and it's very fragrant of Sukadev's, realizations. So this is the Bhagavatam. It describes how, these verses from the Bhagavatam describes the 10 subjects that we're describing. So now we're in the first canto. This is the Sarga. It describes, as we mentioned, the creations of Vishnu, the gross material elements, the 5 objects of sense. All this is described. The Sarga, it's described. So as we go to the 10th canto, that's considered to be the Ashraya, or the transcendence, the summum bonum of everything. It's from whom everything emanates and from whom everything rests. And everything emerges after knowledge. So, we can't imagine. It's just amazing. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, it describes Krishna is the shelter of all manifestations. So this is it. It goes on and on. And these are the prayers of Srimad Bhagavatam. They aim for this Ashraya Tattva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the great souls expert in describing Srimad Bhagavatam, they're very diligent to delineate the other 9 categories. So sometimes it's direct narration, sometimes it's indirect narrations. So that's interesting how sometimes even Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, I think it's in the Bhagavatam, that he likes things that are described in an indirect way and sometimes with many meanings. So this is how we go through the Bhagavatam. You see so many descriptions of Krishna in indirect ways of God, and there's so many different meanings. So Krishna is like a mystery. It's very mysterious to understand Krishna, and he likes that because he doesn't want to be, he reserves the right to not be exposed to everybody. So there's a nice, in the Adi Lila of the 2nd chapter, the summary by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He's actually proving in very summarizing form of how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he diffutes it in so many different ways. And it's described that he used a lot of Jiva Goswami's the Sandarbhas, and all the Sandarbha philosophies in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And even the proof that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's in the Adi 2. So Prabhupada is very genius to give us the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which, gives everything there too, what to speak of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's some nice verses there. Someone get a chance to read that chapter. Describes all the sources of incarnations. So we'll just end here with what Prabhupada said. There's some quotes I got from Prabhupada, that those who are saintly persons, they're 24 hours seeing God. It's a mystery to see God, right? But if we're saintly persons, they have nothing to do, no other business than to see God. But they have got eyes to see. That is a difference. Ordinary persons, they have no eyes, therefore they cannot see God. But those who have developed consciousness, Krishna consciousness, purified eyes, they can always see 24 hours. They don't see anything else except God, because God is everything. Whatever we see, if we have 2 eyes, we see. then we can see God in every second, every moment. How? How can you practice? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vasoham apsu kunteya, I'm the taste of water. Now you're drinking water hundreds of times. As soon as you taste water, how nice, you can immediately see God. Krishna, oh, here's Krishna. Here's Krishna. So how do you say that I can? Can you show me Krishna? You can see. Here's the process. You adopt it. You taste water, and when you enjoy the taste is Krishna. Krishna says, I am this taste. Then where is the difficulty to see Krishna? Okay, so then Prabhupada says, again, he says how we're challenged, can you show me God? But Krishna says here that, again, I am the sunshine. This is the vibhuti forms of Krishna described in the purport today. That who has not seen the sunshine, in the morning we see the sun, and then also we see the moonshine. Krishna says, Pravasha Sasi Suryayo. So as soon as you see the sunshine and moonshine, you see. That's difficult. What's the difficulty? We see Krishna. And also he says, the rumbling sound in the sky. K means sky. Krishna says, I am the sound. As soon as you hear the sound of an airplane, that's also Krishna. When you smell a nice flower, that's also Krishna. You remember Krishna immediately. So there are so many opportunities, but we don't want to remember Krishna. That's the problem. Therefore it said, Janma Guyam Bhagavata. God's appearance, His appearance every moment, everywhere. Here, just in front, like in the deity, I guess during the temple prophets talking. There's Radha Krishna. Personally, He's present, but others, they just see a stone. But He hasn't purified eyes. And He used Lord Chaitanya as an example how immediately when Lord Chaitanya saw the form, he went unconscious and he said, this is my God. So otherwise difficulty. So here it is. So Bhagavad, one has to learn. He has to learn the science, how to see God. That is Bhakti Yoga. Not any other yoga. And here it's also described here that Naham Prakasha Sarvasha Yogamaya Samavita. I am not exposed to everyone. The Yogamaya current is there. So first of all, before asking anybody, can you show me God? You must be qualified to see God. That is required. That qualification is taught in Krishna Consciousness Movement. How to see God, how to understand God. Otherwise, it is mysterious. So that's that. I think it's almost it there. Let's see. One more slide. He goes on. So yeah, we can understand God only through devotional service. Otherwise, you make mistakes. Therefore, we should try to become a devotee. Then everything will be disclosed to Him. Prabhupada uses the verse, Swayameva Puratiyada, Sevan Mukhi Javaru Swayameva Puratiyada. God will be revealed, and He will see everywhere God. Without any cessation, 24 hours a day, He will see God. So as it is prescribed in the authorized Shastras, and directly by the spiritual master, if you follow the principles, it is not very difficult to see God, to understand God. It is very easy, Prabhupada concludes. And so I'll conclude the class. If anybody has any comments or questions, please now.
Okay, I've unmuted everybody. Almost everybody's here on Star Meeting this morning. There's a few devotees on Skype, but I've unmuted everybody. So if anyone has a question or a comment, please go right ahead.
A very nice class. I just wanted to point out,
Thank you.
We had a very lively discussion, 4 or 5 classes ago, where the question came up, could there be an incarnation that comes sort of extemporaneous, perhaps not scheduled? And I believe it was Balabhadra Prabhu who was raising that point, and the example was given of like the Sringadev, who it appeared almost like an extemporaneous appearance when Hiranyakashipu said, well, where is your God? Is he in this pillar? And Prahlad said yes, and then the Sringadev, of course, came out and rent that rascal asunder. But here is, and Ramananda Prabhu and myself were strongly taking the position that, as best we understood from the scripture, that there are no unscheduled incarnations, otherwise it would open up the door, a Pandora's box, for others to come in and claim to be God. So I just want to point out here, very powerfully, the second to last paragraph, Prabhupada says, so all the incarnations of the Lord are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. There is no scope for an impostor to become an incarnation, for an incarnation must be mentioned in a Shastra. An incarnation does not declare himself to be an incarnation of the Lord, but great sages agree by the symptoms mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Anyway, that just jumped out at me so powerfully when you were reading the purport that that's very, very strong evidence that all incarnations are scheduled. I don't know where it is mentioned. I'm sure it was aforementioned that Nrsingadev would appear. Maybe someone else knows. I don't. But I just wanted to point out that that's very, very strong evidence in that nice discussion we had the other day.
Yeah, not only are they scheduled, but also there's this verse that I put on the screen that I was referring to. It's in this particular chapter, that the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. So there's so many, they're innumerable that we can't stop talking about how many there are. You know,
and not only are they scheduled,
not
only are they scheduled, my understanding is there's even evidence where they're going to be born, what their names will be, where their parents are going to be. But there's detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what to speak of, those are like the incarnations, empowered incarnations or indirect incarnations. But then there's the vibhutis. Also, we describe like everywhere. Krishna's in everything. So it's amazing. Krishna's everything. Everything rests on him. Everything merges in him. Everything comes from him. So yeah, that's how the devotee finally we get purified and we begin to see Krishna everywhere. And yeah, it's amazing. Jai, thank you, Prabhu. How did this?
I was just going to say the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Beat you to it.
Yeah, you did. I was going to say word for word. But it's a shame Balabhadra's in here. He was taking the devil's advocate side.
Okay.
But that's a very clear statement there.
Jai.
Raman and I stood strong together on that one.
Jai. How did the presentation look?
Fantastic, Guru. It was really easy to follow. You can concentrate on the points and progression. I really liked it.
Oh, good. I kind of slapped it together. I didn't really put a lot of time into it, but it's kind of I guess it kind of worked out pretty good. So yeah. But yeah, I like these pictures. I mean, next time we'll get more pictures, maybe show the incarnations of Krishna.
Right before the paragraph that Narahari Prabhu just referred to, it mentions the Yuga avatars. So black is Krishna, yellow is Lord Chaitanya. Who's white and red?
Who's the white?
But Kalki's white.
Red was Varaha, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, that's right, Varaha.
And white, was it Kapila? No, I'm not sure.
That would be for the...
White is Hamsa.
Hamsa.
Yeah.
Hamsa,
right.
You're right, that's correct. Okay, Hamsa.
Oh, and Hamsa has such beautiful prayers, that amazing... I think I mentioned it last time in class, Hamsa prayers, something like that. But yeah, powerful.
Isn't Kalki also white who comes at the end?
They didn't mention him. It just yellow referred to Krishna, but yeah, Kalki comes, but doesn't mention his color. It's interesting. Prabhupada calls the Bhagavad Gita the Vibhuti Yoga chapter, and I guess that's the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Describes how Krishna manifests himself in the material world. So yeah. All right, Prabhus, thank you so much for your kind attention. All glories to the Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you,
Gauda
Gauda
Prabhu.
Chandra.
Thank you, Gauda. Very nice class. A lot of great information. Very sweet.
Well, thank
Satisfying.
you. Right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Call me, Gauda. Call me.
Okay, I will.
Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
So, Ramananda, you still there?